Welcome to this deep dive presented by Safety One Source. For all you safety professionals, risk managers, and, well, anyone really looking to deepen their safety knowledge, today we're tackling something pretty fundamental.
That's right. Nationally recognized testing laboratories. NRTLs.
Exactly, NRTLs. You see that acronym pop up in OSHA standards all the time, but what does it really mean? What does a lab actually have to do to get that recognition?
It's a question we get a lot. There's a whole process, specific criteria. Today, we're going to, peel back the layers on OSHA standard 1910.7.
Yeah, give you the clear picture. We're aiming to pull out the key stuff from the reg so you walk away with a solid grasp of what an NRTL is, why they matter so much.
And ultimately, how knowing this helps you make better, safer choices about equipment and materials in your workplace.
Right, fostering that safer environment we're all aiming for. Okay, let's dive in.
Okay, so at its heart, OSHA 1910.7b defines an NRTL as basically an organization that OSHA itself has formally recognized.
Recognized through a specific process you mentioned.
Yes, a specific evaluation process we'll touch on later. And these labs, their job is testing equipment and materials for safety.
Safety testing.
Right. And if the products meet the standards, the NRTL lists them or labels them or accepts them. And Section A just clarifies that this definition applies whenever you see NRTL and other OSHA rules.
Got it. So it's OSHA's official definition for their own regulations. Makes sense. Now, a lab can't just, hang up a sign saying we're in an RTL, can they? What capabilities do they actually need?
No, definitely not. Section 1910.7b1 gets really specific about this. For every single thing they want to list or label.
Every single item.
Every type, yeah. They need the right testing equipment and facilities. We're not talking basic tools here. It has to be specialized for whatever they're testing.
Okay, so specialized gear, like you wouldn't test fire suppression systems with electrical meters.
Exactly. Good analogy. They also need properly trained staff, people with real expertise to run these complex safety tests correctly.
Right, expertise matters.
And they need written testing procedures, detailed ones. This ensures tests are done the same way, rigorously, every time.
Consistency.
Consistency, yes. And crucially, they need good calibration and quality control programs for their own equipment and methods to make sure the testing itself is accurate.
Okay, so it's a whole system ensuring the testing is reliable. Now, the standard mentions two kinds of testing they can do.
Yes. Still in 1910.7b1. First, there's testing for conformance with appropriate test standards. That's the usual safety evaluation you think of.
Checking against the established rule.
Exactly. But second, they can also do experimental testing. This is interesting. It lets them evaluate new stuff, maybe against existing standards, or even check performance in a specific way if a standard doesn't quite fit yet.
So it allows for innovation while still focusing on safety.
That's smart.
Okay, so beyond the testing itself, what other controls and services do NRTLs have to provide?
Right, Section 1910.7b2 covers that. First, they need control procedures to clearly identify the equipment they've listed and labeled, so you can easily see it certified.
Like seeing a UL mark or CSA or similar. That little label tells you something.
Precisely. That visible mark of trust. Second, they have to do regular factory inspections.
Go into the manufacturer.
Yes. Auditing the production facilities to make sure the products coming off the line keep meeting the standard the original sample passed. It's not just a one-time thing.
That's important. So it's not just the prototype, but ongoing production quality too.
Exactly. And third, they do field inspections, checking how their marks or labels are actually being used out in the real world.
Making sure nobody's misusing the certification mark.
Right. Protecting the integrity of their mark is huge for trust.
Makes complete sense. Now, the name itself, Nationally Recognized Testing Laboratory, implies a certain status. How independent do these labs need to be?
Oh, this is absolutely critical. Section 1910.7b3 really hammers this home. An NRTL has to be completely independent.
Completely.
Totally. Independent from the employers who might be required to use the tested equipment. Their judgment can't be swayed by the folks who are essentially their customers.
Okay, so the end users can't influence the results. What about the companies making this stuff?
Just as important. They must be independent from manufacturers or vendors of the equipment they test. The whole idea is objectivity. Decisions based purely on safety standards, no commercial pressure.
Right. No chance of a manufacturer leaning on them for a pass. That independence feels foundational to the whole system's credibility.
It absolutely is.
So, What if someone does have an issue? Maybe they disagree with a finding. Is there a process for that?
Yes, 1910.7b4 covers this. NRTLs have to maintain effective procedures. Procedures for producing findings and reports that are credible, objective, and unbiased. That's baseline.
Sounds like table stakes for this kind of work.
It is. But beyond that, they also need a fair and reasonable system for handling complaints and disputes. If someone questions their methods or results, there has to be a clear, fair way to address it.
Okay, so there's accountability. Good to know. Now, we've talked about appropriate test standards a few times. What actually makes a standard appropriate according to OSHA?
Good question. Section 1910.7c defines it. An appropriate test standard is basically a document laying out safety requirements for specific equipment or a class of equipment.
A safety blueprint, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. And crucially, it has to be recognized in the U.S. as providing an adequate level of safety. It's got to meet a certain accepted baseline.
Accepted by whom, generally?
Well, it also needs to be compatible with and kept current alongside relevant national codes and installation standards. Thing like the National Electrical Code. Safety standards can't be static. They have to evolve.
Makes sense. Codes get updated, so the tests need to keep pace.
Right. And ideally, these standards are developed by standards organizations using a process that gets input from lots of different people, industry, experts, users, government bodies.
A consensus approach?
Pretty much. Or, as an alternative under 1910.7c4, it could be a standard currently designated by ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, as a safety standard, or an ASTM standard used for evaluation. Those bodies have rigorous processes, too.
Okay, so established pathways exist for recognizing a standard. But what if a lab wants to use a standard that doesn't quite fit those categories, maybe something new?
That's where 1910.7d, alternative test standard, comes in. If a lab wants to use a standard that's not already recognized under those criteria, they have to get specific approval from the Assistant Secretary of Labor at OSHA. OSHA will evaluate the proposed standard itself to see if it provides adequate safety before allowing the NRTL to use it.
So OSHA has the final say on non-standard approaches, another layer of oversight.
Okay, now for a lab wanting to become an NRTL, what's that process like?
That's covered in 1910.7e. The testing organization has to formally ask OSHA to evaluate their testing and control programs against all these requirements we've been talking about.
A formal application.
Yes, and it has to be specific to the types of equipment they want to test and certify. The nitty-gritty details of the procedure are laid out in Appendix A of the standard.
So, a direct evaluation by OSHA sounds pretty thorough. I imagine all this evaluation and oversight, it probably costs something, right? You bet. Section 1910.7f deals with the fees. Both applicants and already recognized NRTLs have to pay fees for OSHA services, and they generally have to pay upfront.
Upfront, okay. What kinds of services trigger these fees?
It covers quite a bit. Processing initial applications, applications to expand their scope, like adding new types of equipment and renewal applications.
Renewals, too?
Yep. It also covers on-site reviews OSHA might need to do, the detailed review of the application itself, writing up reports, and the Federal Register notices.
The official announcements.
Right. And the periodic site audits OSHA conducts to make sure they're still compliant.
So it really covers the whole life cycle. How do they figure out the cost? Is it just a flat fee?
No, it's based on OSHA's actual costs. According to 1910.7f2, they calculate it using either the average or actual time their staff spend on it. The staff costs per hour, which includes more than just salary, like benefits.
Overhead and stuff.
Exactly. And travel costs, if they have to go on site, they even give a formula. Fee, hours X, staff cost hour, plus travel costs, roughly speaking.
Okay, so it reflects the effort OSHA puts in. Do these fees change?
They can. 1910.73 says OSHA periodically reviews its costs and can propose revised fees. They'd use the same formula with updated cost estimates. Any proposed changes get published in the Federal Register for public comment first.
So there's transparency there. What about actually paying? When are things due?
Section 1910.74 lays it out, often in a table in the actual reg. For applications, initial fees are due with the application. OSHA won't even start processing until they get paid.
Okay, pay to play, basically.
Pretty much. And before assessment activities, you pay estimated staff time and travel, plus report and notice fees.
Yep.
For the ongoing audits, NRTLs pay the estimated costs before the audit happens.
And afterwards.
Afterwards, OSHA figures out the actual costs and adjusts either billing more or refunding the difference. And they're serious about payment late fees apply, and repeated non-payment can lead to OSHA revoking recognition.
Wow, okay, so paying attention to the fees is critical. Where can someone find the practical details on how to pay?
Section 1910.7 points you to the OSHA website. They have program directives there with the specific info on payment methods.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think we've really unpacked a lot here, this deep dive into what makes an NRTL. It's been revealing.
It has. We've seen there are these independent bodies recognized by OSHA doing rigorous testing, inspection, certification, all against recognized safety standards. It's a whole system.
A system built on their capabilities, controls, that crucial independence, and procedures for handling issues, all under OSHA's watch.
Exactly. And for you safety pros, you risk managers out there listening, understanding this is just so important for selecting equipment that's truly safe and compliant.
Yeah, knowing what that NRTL mark actually signifies, the process behind it,
Yeah.
it really empowers you to make informed choices.
Which directly contributes to safer workplaces. That's the goal.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Given how vital NRTLs are, how does your organization currently check the certifications on your safety gear? Is that process as strong as it could be? Are there ways to maybe tighten that up for even better safety assurance?
Good question to ponder. And definitely check out the list of currently recognized NRTLs on OSHA's website. It's readily available.
Great advice. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive brought to you by Safety One Source.